Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's often misunderstood, yet incredibly vital for so many people: sober living. It's a crucial path to recovery, sure, but the reality of what it offers. It seems frequently clouded by, well, a lot of assumptions and maybe misinformation. So we're diving deep into the world of sober living homes today. We're going to try and sift through the static, shed some light on the truth behind these common misconceptions.
Yeah, exactly. Our mission today really is to equip you with accurate, actionable information, help you truly understand what these environments offer. Importantly, dispel those persistent myths that often, frankly, hinder progress for people seeking help.
Right. And we've pulled insights from multiple articles, expert sources, trying to give you the clearest picture possible. Okay, time to pull back the curtain on this. Let's unpack this. So many people hear sober living and I think immediately jump to dull or boring. Is that really what life without substances looks like in these places based on our sources?
No, actually quite the opposite. It's less about what you give up and really much more about what you gain. What's fascinating here, I think, is that sober living often opens up a whole world of opportunities, new experiences, genuine connections. We've heard stories, residents rediscovering passions they'd long forgotten, maybe joining community theater, training for marathons.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even starting small businesses right from their sober home. It's like a re-engagement with life that's often more vibrant, more intentional than before.
That sense of gaining, not losing, that seems to fly right in the face of another common worry: isolation. The idea that getting sober means cutting yourself off, maybe from your social life, friends, leading to loneliness. Is that the reality?
Absolutely not. That's a huge myth. Sobriety doesn't mean loneliness. Actually, these sober living environments, they foster a really strong sense of community and support through things like group therapy, sober events, just mutual encouragement. Individuals in recovery find real camaraderie, understanding. They find it among peers who, share similar experiences. You find a new tribe, really, a network of people who genuinely get it.
And what about that really powerful, kind of damaging idea that relapse is inevitable? That must be incredibly discouraging for someone trying to get clean. What's the biggest factor you've seen in helping individuals break that cycle of thinking and actually build resilience?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It really seems to come down to, well, early intervention helps, developing a robust toolkit of coping mechanisms. And crucially, understanding that a slip isn't necessarily a failure. It can be a data point, something to learn from. So while relapses can happen, they are absolutely not unavoidable. Not at all. With the right support, learning effective strategies, and, a real commitment to personal growth, individuals can significantly reduce the risk. They can build a solid foundation for long-term sobriety. It's about building that consistent progress, I think, not just fearing a fall.
So it's about building resilience for anyone on that path. And that leads to another assumption, doesn't it, that sober living is sort of only for severe cases, like just for those who've hit absolute rock bottom. Is it really that narrow?
No, not at all. The reality is sober living benefits pretty much anyone seeking to break free from substance abuse, regardless of how severe the addiction might seem. It provides essential tools, structure, support for maintaining sobriety. Doesn't matter if someone is just starting their journey or maybe has been sober for years but needs that ongoing community. It's definitely inclusive, not exclusive.
Got it. And finally, just on this first set of myths, there's that pervasive idea that recovery is a solitary journey. You have to do it alone. What do our sources say about relying on others? Is that encouraged?
Oh, absolutely. Our sources really emphasize that seeking support from friends, family, professional resources is just crucial for a successful recovery. Sober living facilities, support groups, they're specifically designed to offer that vital sense of belonging, that accountability. They empower individuals to stay on track and achieve lasting sobriety. It's very much a team effort, not a solo mission.
Okay, so that covers some core beliefs about the experience itself. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Let's look at the operational side, the people running these homes. Myth number one: running a sober living home is just a side hustle, a passive income play. Is it really that simple? Can you just rent out rooms and call it a day?
Oh gosh, no, that's a truly harmful misconception. And frankly, a bit insulting to the people doing this work well. Running a sober living home is a full-time mission. It demands significant dedication, serious commitment. You're talking 204/7 availability for emergencies, a deep, deep understanding of addiction, trauma, relapse cycles. It involves ongoing partnerships with treatment centers, job programs, court systems, and strict compliance with safety, legal licensing standards.
Right.
I mean, people's lives are literally on the line in these homes. Reducing this work to just a business scheme, it minimizes the complexity and, importantly, the dignity of people rebuilding their lives. The goal for good operators is sustainability with integrity. Services are priced fairly, sure, but revenue is reinvested into safety, support, care, not just pure profit.
Okay, that makes sense. And building on that, there's this kind of contradictory belief. Either operators are just in it for the money, or on the flip side, that it's somehow free to live in a sober living home. What's the actual financial picture for residents and operators?
Yeah, it's neither of those extremes usually. The reality is, sober living does cost money. Residents typically pay rent. Recovery housing, generally speaking, isn't covered by insurance, and grants, while helpful, don't cover everything. So rent covers essentials. Beds, utilities, sometimes groceries, toiletries, Wi-Fi, staffing, keeping the place clean and secure, maybe transportation help. And beyond just covering costs, paying rent actually helps residents practice financial responsibility, budgeting, skills they need before living independently again.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so again, the aim for reputable places is fair pricing and reinvestment into safety, support, care, ensuring the quality and longevity of the program.
Right. And then there's another operational myth, the idea that sober living is just shared housing with rules, or maybe that residents only have to stay clean. What do the sources tell us about the actual structure, the purpose beyond just, having a roof?
Oh, it's so much more than regular housing with curfews. So much more. It's a structured, intentional, really recovery-oriented environment. High-quality programs offer a comprehensive support system. We're talking peer support, life coaching, practical help with things like getting state IDs, finding jobs, sorting out transportation.
Things people really need.
Exactly. They might also include things like faith-based programming, accountability structures, community partnerships for accessing benefits, requirements to stay in frequent contact with coordinators, following FACE programs, attending a certain number of 12-step meetings, getting a job or volunteering. I remember one story, a resident hadn't had an official ID in years. Just guiding them through that process, connecting them to a job program, it sparked this incredible sense of self-worth.
Wow.
Yeah, it had been dormant for so long. So it really is transitional recovery housing. It's not just having roommates.
That structure sounds key. And speaking of programming, you mentioned faith-based options. There's a common misunderstanding there, right?
Yeah.
The idea that these homes demand strict adherence to specific religious practices. Is that the universal expectation?
Yeah, that is a very common misconception. Many of these homes, while providing a supportive environment with spiritual elements, generally do not mandate participation. They don't require adherence to specific faiths, practices like prayer or scripture reading, often offered as options, tools, not requirements. The primary focus is still that supportive environment for recovery. Spiritual components can be really beneficial for those who find them helpful, of course, but faith-based often just signifies integrating a spiritual dimension, which helps many people, but it's usually not tied to one specific religion or exclusive. Reputable programs will, respect individual beliefs. They allow residents to explore spirituality at their own pace without forcing religion.
That's an important distinction.
And what's also fascinating here is that many of these programs actually integrate evidence-based practices too. Things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or DBT, alongside those spiritual approaches.
Interesting blend. Okay, moving beyond the day-to-day and types of homes, a huge concern for communities is often regulation. The common belief seems to be that all sober homes are just completely unregulated, flying under the radar. Is that true anymore?
Well, while there might have been a time, or maybe still are, places where oversight was lacking, it's definitely not universally the case now. Not at all. There are significant efforts being made to raise the bar across the industry. For instance, in Texas, you have TROHN certification. That ensures homes are inspected, they're transparent, they meet national recovery housing standards. Specific providers really pride themselves on that.
Right, so there are standards emerging.
Exactly. And beyond specific certifications like TROHN, it's important to remember that sober living homes, like other group homes, are subject to state and federal housing laws. And these can actually override local zoning restrictions sometimes.
How does that work?
Well, take North Carolina, for example. They have state statutes, GS 16822 and 16823, I believe. These mandate that certain family care homes, which explicitly include homes for recovering substance abuse patients, among others with disabilities, must be treated just like single-family homes in zoning districts. Local governments can't just prohibit them or subject them to special burdensome reviews because of who lives there.
And federally?
Yeah, connecting this to the bigger picture. Federally, you have the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. Both protect individuals with disabilities, and that includes recovering substance abuse patients. These laws require local governments to make reasonable accommodation in their rules and policies. The goal is to give protected persons an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling.
So things like limits on residence.
Exactly. It can affect things like limits on the number of residents or maybe separation requirements between facilities. Now, courts have debated what's reasonable. Is 8 residents? Okay. 12. Is a half-mile separation reasonable? But the key is some accommodation is legally required to ensure equal access.
Okay, that clarifies the regulatory side a bit. Finally, there's this persistent question about who can actually run these homes effectively. The myth is sort of, you have to be an addict yourself to run a successful sober living home. Is that what our sources explicitly say, or is the emphasis elsewhere?
It's interesting. Our sources don't directly state that a personal history of addiction is like a mandatory prerequisite. However, they do strongly emphasize the significant qualifications needed: a really deep understanding of addiction, trauma, relapse cycles, and just incredible dedication from operators.
So expertise matters more than personal history.
It seems so. Success really hinges on providing that structured, intentional, recovery-oriented environment. That includes community, coaching, connection, with a strong emphasis on culturally competent spaces and trauma-informed care. So it's about being deeply knowledgeable, compassionate, and skilled, regardless of your own personal journey.
Right, so putting this all together, what does it all mean? We've busted quite a few common myths today, haven't we? Revealing that sober living is, well, far from what many people assume it to be. It's clearly not inherently boring or isolating, and certainly not just a passive venture for operators.
Absolutely. This work is, I think, sacred in a way. It's strategic. And it really does save lives. By debunking these misconceptions, hopefully we can help create a more compassionate, more informed society, one that genuinely encourages and embraces those seeking to lead fulfilling, sober lives.
Yeah. And for you, the listener, just understanding these realities is, I think, a step towards a brighter, more informed perspective on recovery and the vital role these homes can play.
Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe something for you to consider. In what other areas of life might common misconceptions be hindering progress, or maybe just understanding